So we're going to watch a video reproduction of a SARS-CoV-2 virion, so the virus that causes COVID-19, and particularly this is the Delta variant, attaching to a respiratory epithelial cell, the cells that line your airways and lungs, and invade that cell and see what happens. So here we have the virus binding to its ACE2 cell receptor. It moves inside the cell, and what happens is it releases its RNA, and the cell then uses its ribosome to turn that RNA into virus protein. The virus proteins then go inside the endoplasmic reticulum in the cytoplasm of the cell, and this is where the virus is essentially hijacking the cell to turn it into a virus factory. As you can see, this is making thousands and thousands of copies of the virus. They get packaged here in the Golgi apparatus where they turn into new virus particles or virions, and then they come out of the cell and go on to infect other cells. And each cell that's infected with a virus that is then hijacked to become a virus factory can produce tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of new virus particles. And that's how the virus has its effect inside the body.
Yeah. He's taking it. You can talk, right? Yeah, you can talk. So his mouth.
Okay, so this is the virus coming in and releasing its RNA, which is then turned into protein by the cell's ribosome. Those virus proteins then move into the endoplasmic reticulum in the cytoplasm of the cell, and here they're hijacking the cell to essentially become a virus factory. So new virus proteins and RNA are produced. Those proteins and RNA then get packaged and move into the Golgi apparatus where they're turned into new virus particles, which then move to the membrane of the cell, and then they're extruded out of the cell. And each time one of these cells is infected, it can produce tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of new virus particles that then go on to infect other cells. Now we know one of the most important protective measures that the immune system can generate for infection is antibodies. And when you have antibodies against the virus, particularly the spike protein that binds to the cell receptor, you can see those antibodies bind to the spike protein and prevent it from attaching to the cell. And that's how antibodies prevent cell infection and prevent the virus from replicating and becoming that virus factory inside the cell. And we know that vaccinations provide by far the highest levels of antibodies for COVID-19, even compared to natural infection. And that's why vaccines are so much more effective at providing immunity against COVID-19 infection compared to natural infection. The virus gains entry to cells through its spike protein, which binds to the ACE2 cell receptor on the membranes of cells. Now, as long as this spike protein is open and can be essentially the lock to fit that key, it can gain entry. However, these are antibodies, and these antibodies are directed against the spike protein, and when those antibodies bind, they prevent the spike protein from being able to gain entry into the cell. So that lock and key mechanism is blocked. And that's how vaccines work to protect us against virus infection and entry. If you have enough of these antibodies floating around, they prevent the virus from being able to bind and gain entry into the cell. So you can see when you have lots of antibodies around blocking all of those spike proteins, the virus can't grab on to its receptor site and be able to move inside the cell. And we know that vaccines give you the highest level of antibodies against the SARS-CoV-2 virus compared to even natural infection. And that's why vaccinations are so effective at preventing SARS-CoV-2 infection.